Welcome to KidMissing TV.
Welcome to KidMissing TV. This is our 15th episode. Today we're going to journey to the Pacific Northwest. That's Washington and Oregon. William Downey was 12 years old when he disappeared from Seattle, Washington on May 5th, 1987. Unfortunately, there's not a lot about this case, but I'll tell you what we do know. He left his mother a note saying that he was going to stay overnight with a friend. Well, she contacted the friend the next day and found that he never arrived at the home. A large white car, possibly a 1974 or 75 Chevrolet Impala, was seen in the neighborhood at the time that he possibly disappeared and had never been seen in the neighborhood before that. So that could be a suspect, it could be a witness. And unfortunately, that is all the information that is available. Please look at William's picture, and if you know anything, call the King County Sheriff's Office at 206-296-7692. David William Adams disappeared on May 3rd, 1968 from Issaquah, Washington. He was just 8 years old. He was returning home from a friend's house, walking in the 14,000 block of 240th Avenue Southeast. About 1,000 people, aided by search dogs, searched for him in the area called Tiger Mountain, where he lived. He was in third grade at the time of his disappearance. In 2009, when the cold case unit was formed, his case was taken up by them. In fact, a former neighbor of his is the prime suspect. A person of interest. They tried to do the best they could in figuring out where he was, what he was doing, all those things, but they can't rule him in or out completely. So that's one of their biggest goals. The man did fail a polygraph test and a search warrant was issued, but nothing was gleaned from that search warrant. There is a deck of cards that the cold case unit has put out of cases. This case, David William Adams, is profiled on the front of the ace of spades. There's a different case on the front of each card. If you have any information, please call the King County Sheriff's Office at 206-205-7810 or the 206-296-4155. And as a side note, I never saw a picture of the playing card, or I certainly would have included it for you. Jeffrey Bratcher disappeared from Ocean Shores, Washington on June 15, 1974. He was 7 years old. His mother sent him for a visitation with his dad. Him and a bunch of the other children, 6 in total, were playing. They were camping out, and they were called for dinner. And when the other kids went one way to the picnic site, he said, "I'm going to go this way." And he was never seen again. Now, you'd think he may have gotten lost, except that the dogs tracked his scent to the road, to the actual road, rather than into the woods. So that makes police believe he was not lost in the woods, that he was kidnapped. And they put an APB out, because that's all they could do at the time. They didn't have Amber Alerts. They didn't have Amber Alerts 41 years ago. So that's the best that they could do. In 2011, 8 sets of human remains turned up in the University of Washington's anthropology department. including the partial skull of an 8-year-old little boy, which in the beginning they thought may have been Jeffrey's. DNA has proven that it was not. This particular set of remains was sent to the University of Washington from Base Center, Washington, postmarked September 9th, 1980, through the U.S. Postal Service. Anyone else think that that's just really bizarre? Who sends human remains in the mail? Yeah, I've seen a lot of things sent through the mail. Human remains, however, is not one of them. That just blew me away when I read that. Had to share that with you because it just does not make sense. They know this skull is a child of around 8 and it is less than 50 years old. I don't know, I would think if you found human remains that you'd probably call the police department, not pick them up and mail them to an anthropologist. Just saying. If you have any information in this case, you can call the Grays Harbor Sheriff's Department, Detective Youmans, at 360-249-3711. Christie Farney disappeared from Medford, Oregon on December 14, 1978. She was just 6 years old. She was abducted while walking the few blocks between her foster home on Peach Street and her school, Jackson Elementary School. The first people that were spoken to were her father and stepmother, because she had testified that morning against her father in a physical abuse case. They, however, have been ruled out as suspects. She may have been taken by another family member to safety or killed. That's one of the theories bandied about. The father did die in a car crash several years ago without ever finding out what actually happened. And her mother died in a motorcycle accident a year before she disappeared. Christie's half-brother may have been able to provide police information in this case, but he took his own life. This year, in 2015, her half-brother, Dean, has come forward and said he wants the case solved. And police say they're keeping their eyes open for all possibilities, and they're not giving up, and neither are we, because we don't give up here. If you have any information about the whereabouts of Christie Farney, please contact the Medford, Oregon Police Department at 541-774-2250. Derek Engbretson. That took me some doing to learn to pronounce. December 5th, 1998, he disappeared from Bonanza, Oregon. What a name for a place, a happy name. He was 8 years old. Derek's case has a website, derekengbretson.blogspot.com. He became separated from his father and his grandfather when they were cutting down a Christmas tree. They never were far from the road, so they don't believe he got lost necessarily. And there is actually a potential suspect in this case. They did worry because a blizzard happened the night he was taken, so they didn't know whether, for sure at that time, whether he had succumbed in the blizzard. But they actually now believe that this man took him. Extensive air and ground searches were undertaken. They never found him. As I said, a blizzard hit the area that night. In 2004, the Oregonian reported that a Frank J. Milligan, who was convicted of raping a 10-year-old boy and slashing the boy's throat, leaving him for dead, he survived, miraculously, may have been involved in Derek's kidnapping. Police link between Milligan and Derek was made 2 years before, in 2002, said Ed Caleb, Klamath County District Attorney. And it was only made public the weekend of the article after it was uncovered by the Oregonian reporter on a story about sex abuse. Milligan actually confessed to killing Derek and then, of course, recanted as they all do. Now the question is whether he's telling the truth or not telling the truth, and which way he's telling the truth. So, again, derekengbertson.blogspot.com. And if you have any information, you can call the Klamath County Sheriff's Office, or you can, of course, leave a tip in the comments on the blog. Phone number is 541-883-5130. This is our special feature case. This little girl's name is Marie Burke. She disappeared on August 31st, 1961 from her Tacoma, Washington home. She was 8 years old. What makes this case kind of unique was that she knew a 14-year-old young man who became notorious in this country. His name was Ted Bundy, Theodore Robert Bundy. And it is believed that he is one of the suspects. There was also another teenage boy who is a suspect in this case as well. But we'll never know for sure until she's found. They do have Bundy's DNA. They said that whatever they were using, they couldn't get enough to prove whether it was his DNA or not. And I'm not sure what they were using. Maybe something from the house. I'm not sure what they were using. Maybe something from the house, like I said, because they don't have her remains. She disappeared, as I said, from her home in the early morning hours. She had brought her sister the night before, her 3-year-old, to her parents' room because her sister was crying because her arm hurt. She had broken her arm. It was in a cast. I don't know why Mom and Dad didn't give the kid Tylenol, but they sent the 2 kids back to bed. I know from experience when you've got a splint or cast or whatever, and you wake up, when you first wake up, it ever-loving hurts. Trust me on that. So I understand why she was up. And when the mother got up at 5:30, she discovered a small living room window open, and a small table underneath it tipped over. Or bench, I guess is what it was. She also discovered the front door, which had been closed and locked the night before, open. Police discovered footprints outside, but they were useless because it had rained the night before a little bit, which this is Washington. It rains 200 days a year. So they were useless. So they were not able to match them to anyone. In 2011 is when they found Bundy's DNA in a vial of blood that was taken before his execution in 1989. I remember that like it was yesterday. I was 15 years old when he was executed. I remember the interview he sat down and did just before they, and I was, even though I'm not a big proponent of the death penalty in any way, in fact, I'm rather an opponent, I was almost relieved because looking at the pictures of his victims and knowing what I knew, had I been older, I looked just like his victims, which creeped me out. But they were hoping to develop a DNA profile of the suspect in the case and compare it to Bundy. I don't know where they were getting, again, the sample, but they couldn't get enough, as I said before, of the suspect's blood, DNA, whatever form it took. So they hit a dead end. There was another teenage boy, as I mentioned, that was also a suspect. Bundy's house was 3 miles away from Burr's home. MapQuest confirms this, they say. But he had started very young, so they felt that he did it. And in rule, The late great true crime writer believes and has said, quote, "My personal opinion is that Ted Bundy killed Anne Marie Burke." And though she's written about hundreds of murder cases, she said, quote, "Every time I give a talk in the Northwest, someone asks about Anne Marie." This little girl's never been forgotten. In 2014, more information about Bundy's connection came out. Bundy had a paper route, although he claims it was on the other side of town. Most people say he did in fact deliver papers to Anne Marie's home, and there was no question he knew her. At one time he actually confessed, but these guys confess to more than they do, so it's hard to say. The other suspect was a 19-year-old grocery clerk. So, Bundy, as I said, started early. He would mutilate animals. He removed knives from the kitchen and placed them around his mother while she slept. He was just creepy from a very young age, so anything is possible. The only question is, could he really have hidden her body so well that we haven't found it over 50 years later? 54 years later. I'm not sure that a 14-year-old who doesn't drive, because he's 14, gets everywhere on a bicycle, could actually accomplish this and leave such little evidence at the scene and not make a whole bunch of noise. Although, if this bench was knocked over, I would think there would have been enough noise to wake up Mom and Dad. I don't know. Just something not adding up. There is a book about this case, Ted and Anne, The Mystery of a Missing Child and Her Neighbor, Ted Bundy, written by Rebecca Morris. I have not read it, nor have I seen it. And it came out last year in 2014. And again, in 2014 is when they finally amplified the DNA, but there was not enough to link it to Ted Bundy or anyone else. Detective Morris said, and I quote, "The best suspects in 1961 was a high school neighbor boy who was 2 houses away from Anne's house. Police questioned him a couple of times, and a couple of bean pickers who had come from Oregon to look for work. There wasn't enough evidence to charge either of them either. Note, that's not the same boy that bagged groceries. That was another suspect. Anne's mother still does not know whether to believe Bundy took her daughter or not. She's been back and forth on this. If you have any information on the case of Anne Marie Burke, you can call the Tacoma Police Department, Detective DeVault, 253-798-4721. This is our blast from the past. This is not too distant in the past. Wesley Allen Dodd was a child serial killer. He was active from September 4th, 1989 to October 30th, 1989, that we know of. He's been exposing himself and sexually abusing children since he was 13 years old. We know this. He was active in Washington and Oregon. He was in a park, and he failed a few times to lure boys. He finally lured 2 brothers, ages 11 and 10, Cole and William Neer, to a secluded area where he forced them to undress. He sexually assaulted the brothers, and he stabbed the brothers to death. Cole died at the scene, and William died in the ambulance en route to the hospital. Dodd had a diary where he kept notes about what he did, what he wanted to do, contraptions he wanted to build to torture kids. It was macabre. It was disturbing. He wanted to experiment, do surgeries. He was Looney Tunes. He also abducted on October 29th a little boy, 4-year-old Lee Isley. He, at a local park in Portland, he took him back to his apartment. He sexually assaulted him, he strangled him, and he hung the body in his closet like some kind of sick trophy. That's horrible. I actually read a book about this case called Driven to Kill. I highly recommend it. He later took and disposed of the boy, burned the boy's clothes, and kept the boy's underwear in his briefcase, along with the diary and a couple of other sick trophies. And he went to a movie theater a few days later, and he tried to take a little boy. The little boy's mother and stepfather sent him to use the bathroom. He was 6 years old. They thought nothing of it. And the little boy began screaming when Dodd picked him up. "This is not my daddy, you're not my daddy," and hitting and kicking. The way we try to teach our kids to do. Kids, this is what you need to do. You know? And he did it, and people listened. They chased him. The stepfather was told, who by all accounts loved him as his own, had raised him, came out of the theater and ran down the street after Dodd, grabbed Dodd, pulled the kid out of the car, dragged Dodd back to the theater, threw him on the floor. Security held him down, and police came, and when they got to Dodd's apartment, they were able to link him to both of the other crimes. And who knows what other crimes he may have been linked to. And of course he went to prison. He was convicted of 3 murders. He was hung for his crimes. He actually chose hanging. In Washington, you can choose your method of execution. And it had been years since anybody had hung, but he chose that. And he was hung at the state prison in Walla Walla at 12:05 a.m. on January 5th, 1993. I don't know, in jail, he made a pamphlet, which schools use. Okay, it's just creepy. It says, "My name is Wes. I am a stranger to you. I am the kind of stranger you should stay away from. We can be nice to you and maybe give you money or play games with you, we might be very mean. When we are nice, we can trick you. It is so we can trick you into doing something bad." The pamphlet is divided into sections, subtitled Run, Scream, Yell, and Be a Hero. Dodd mentioned with pride that some parents had written to thank him for writing the pamphlet, and as I said, some teachers are using it in their classrooms. Some, however, have questioned his motives. "You're just a killer. Why do you care?" they ask. He doesn't know what to say. Ooh, that's just creepy. And again, he was hung. And he said in court, and you can see the video of it, when asked on the witness stand, "What will you do if you ever get out of jail?" Because he wanted the death penalty. He said, "I'll just continue hurting and killing children. You have to keep me or kill me." That's just creepy. And this particular case is a cautionary tale. It really is. To make our kids aware of what they have to do, like that little boy did in that theater. Or there was a torture rack literally waiting for him. Brave, smart little boy listened to his mom and stepdad and did what we're all taught to do as children, hopefully, is say, "This is not my mommy, this is not my daddy," and hit and kick and punch and pull hair, whatever you gotta do. It's okay. You know, we're taught to respect grown-ups and, and respect our elders. not when they're grabbing us and trying to take us off somewhere. You know, you got to remember that. Thank you so much for joining me today. Next time we're going to have a very special show. We're going to talk about the unidentified woman and 3 little girls from Allenstown, New Hampshire. We're calling it Mystery in New Hampshire. There's no episode number. It's a special. So look out for that, for our KidMissing TV special. Again, thank you for watching the program. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Have a wonderful holiday weekend. Stay safe. Good night. God bless you.